I was a little surprised to see that a lot of our fans submitted questions with concerns over AEW, considering that a lot of our fans actually are big AEW fans and enjoy the product. So we're going to address your concerns for AEW next on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Ralph, will start with our first question from David Scott. As someone who only watches AEW and has followed the promotion since day one and the surprise Jericho appearance to launch the promotion, do you think AEW has lost their edge?
Michael, I remember when the debuts started happening more and more frequently. The big moments started happening more and more frequently. I remember going back to the unsanctioned match between Moxley and Kenny Omega and saying they need to be careful with this because there's only so far you can push the envelope until you can't push it any farther. Well, when you push that envelope so far to the point where it's above and beyond, exploding rings, exploding barbed wire, debut after debut after debut, promising of talent upon talent upon talent, about the lights going out and coming back on. There's only so many times that that's going to happen and have the effect you want until one, the fans are conditioned to it and you don't get that reaction anymore, or two, there's no one left to debut or you can't push the envelope that far anymore. So how can they create that environment when for the past, 3 years, that's kind of what they've had for the atmosphere and the environment that they've created. Now, has it worked? Yeah, it's worked. They've created a significant amount of buzz within the wrestling industry. I've enjoyed it and a lot of other people have enjoyed it, but I've been saying since that unsanctioned match, they need to be careful with this because at some point you're conditioning your fan base. You won't get the reaction you want. And when you can't create those oh my God moments, which essentially was what the Attitude Era was built on with milk trucks and bear trucks and whatever else, this is your life segments. You can only do that for so long until it becomes stale, or you just don't have the talent that you can debut to solicit that reaction. I think AEW is still a good, fresh product, but I don't know if they're going to get that type of reaction until they get some more big stars that might be able to come over from other promotions.
Tony Khan recently admitted this on, I forget what interview it was, but I know it's circulating on social media with a couple of big quotes in there, but one that I have not seen yet circulate on social media, and I only know it because I read the article. AEW Dynamite and Rampage are still TV shows. We live in a society now and a TV consumption way where you need to find ways to binge watch, essentially. And now, obviously, AEW Dynamite is a weekly program and you're not really binge watching, but you have to get people to watch the next episode. What carries over from last week's episode into this week's episode? And this is not an AEW problem. This is a problem across wrestling. Raw, SmackDown, they don't close the show with something that I'm like, holy crap, what's going to happen next week? If they finish the show with MJF and Wardlow, let's say in this past week's Dynamite, and that closed the show instead of opened it, that's exactly what you need because it's like, oh my God, I got to see what happens at Double or Nothing.
Shareable content. As you pointed out.
Exactly.
You know, a segment with a bear truck or a milk truck or Steve Austin beating the crap out of people, dumping beer all over him. That has the potential to reach more people on, let's say, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, because it can reach people outside the wrestling bubble. Great matches are appreciated by fans like us and most fans that are true wrestling fans. But good luck getting that shared or beyond the wrestling bubble or the wrestling community. So they have the talent to do it. They have CM Punk. They have Kenny Omega, who's going to be coming back at some point. They have Bryan Danielson. They just have to put them in intriguing storylines and put them in situations that can expand past just this week or this night on Dynamite.
AEW's 3 years old. I get that. And I'm sure people are going to say that in the comment section. And this is growing pains. At the same time, this is growing pains. Like, it can't always be high. Successful businesses always have peaks and valleys, and the successful ones are able to go and, overcome their valleys until the next peak comes.
Yep.
AEW a year ago had some phenomenal peaks, and it showed in the ratings, it showed in the interest. Right now, it's a valley. But let's head to the next question from Flying Low. Do you think because the roster is so bloated, most pay-per-views will be similar to Double or Nothing where Tony Khan is trying to put as many people on the card as possible and making too many multi-man matches?
It's not necessarily the depth of the roster and the people that are on it. I think it's a couple of things. One of them is the fact that Tony Khan had a tendency to bring people in and put them on a pedestal and make them feel special, which is great. But he also kind of reinforced the debut with like some of his narrative. The biggest star, the mega star, this, that, the third. And when you say things like that, people think in their mind, okay, this guy's going to get shot to the moon. This guy's going to debut. He's going to be right in the title picture. And what's already a bloated roster, it's difficult to do that. It's difficult to chisel out a piece in the show and feel important when you have so many good, talented people. I don't fault Tony Khan. Why would you be upset that a company is trying to amass the best roster possible? I don't fault Tony Khan for that. But guys like Jay Lethal, as an example, they made a big deal out of him when he was debuted on pay-per-view. Hasn't done a whole lot. Maybe he's doing a little bit right now. Malachi Black, we've talked about him. Ruby Soho. I think right now he is in a position where he's trying to throw a bunch of matches together, these multi-man matches, these tag team matches, to try and get as many of these talented people in matches as possible. And the unfortunate thing is he has that young talent that people want to see elevated as well. So the more top talent that you've added from other companies, the harder it is to highlight that young talent.
I think part of the problem too is, we don't know the contracts that AEW gives. And it seems like they try to portray the independent contractor status more than WWE does. Does that mean getting them on a pay-per-view gives them a bigger paycheck? So that's why he's trying to get all these people on the card. I think as far as too many multi-man matches or whatever, I personally don't have a problem with that, because I see that all the time in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling always has, like, basically everyone in New Japan is involved in some kind of faction. It gets more people on the card, which is great. As long as they're involved in storylines, I don't care if it's a 10-man tag, a tag team, a one-on-one, a triple threat, a fatal four-way. But if you're just throwing matches out there to throw matches, that's when I have a problem. Because you could tell me this match is going to be a dream match and this match could be 7 stars. But until you tell me the why, just because I'm a logical person, I like logic, and that's part of logic is the why behind it, you're not going to sell me. That's just me, though. Next question comes from Santano. I think I pronounced that right. SK. Is Tony Khan recruiting too many NXT wrestlers?
Oh, gee, a lot of Tony Khan questions tonight, huh? I remember going to NXT shows and that place was flooded with Bullet Club t-shirts. It was so linear, the fan base. There was so much of a, fan base that was watching NXT, but also paying attention to New Japan or Bullet Club and all that stuff. Those guys, they work the style that AEW fans want to see. Mm-hmm. They always have. Right. And for all those fans that used to kind of crap on NXT, it's like, well, I kind of feel like in a weird way, NXT almost was a part of paving the way for AEW into existence. So why wouldn't they sign some of that talent when, frankly, I said this years ago, I thought NXT was one of the better promotions in the United States at their peak. So good for him for signing those people.
Where else do you want them to sign people from?
Yeah.
These guys are, if they're part of NXT, that means they're experienced in the biggest company in the wrestling industry, and they have experience working with, in front of a camera, in front of a crowd that's not a bingo hall. If Adam Cole's available, you go after him. Right. When Samoa Joe's available, you go after him. When Keith Lee's available, you go after him. And if that means guys like Joey Janela and Marco Stunt and Stu Grayson are, not renewed for their contracts because of it, that's just the business. Next question comes from Sam. That's literally his name on YouTube. It's just Sam. Within the next year, will there be more AEW wrestlers going to WWE or WWE wrestlers going to AEW?
Like, which is going to have more people that go back and forth?
Yeah. Like, who's going to jump ship more? AEW to WWE or WWE to AEW?
I would.
This is a better. This is a better question, I think, to answer in 2 years. This year, because it's like, does WWE really want to sign Joey Janela? I don't think so. Do they really want to sign Marco Stunt? I don't think so. Stu Grayson, if Evil Uno was to go with him, maybe, but we know Vince and tag teams. there'll be more WWE to AEW because eventually there'll be more releases, because despite all the cutting that they've done, there's still a bloated roster in WWE that they're not getting people on TV time. And if you believe the rumor that Adrian has reported that the brand split isn't necessarily ending, but people will be going through different shows based on storylines. So we could see Riddle appearing on SmackDown more. Maybe McIntyre goes to Raw, or whatever the case may be, which I'm totally fine with. That means guys are going to get released from WWE, and that means they could sign with AEW. And eventually there's going to be some expiring contracts from AEW, but do I think they go to WWE? No, because I think they're waiting on MJF, Wardlow, Jade.
Yep.
They rather have the big guys and big girls that have been on every single week or almost every single week, not the ones that are regulated to dark. They don't want to deal with them. They already have NXT 2.0. They don't need the dark talent.
WWE, the unfortunate side of them is they do release quite a few people. And, I think that AEW has proven that they're more than willing to bring said releases on. Whether that's, who knows, Roderick Strong, I could certainly see him going to AEW sometime soon if he's released or if his contract's up. Much more likely people go to from WWE to AEW.
Our next question here, Ralph, comes from Shay Aganubi. Do you think if Wardlow wins the TNT title, do you think it becomes a much more serious title?
From what it is right now, absolutely. I think the TNT title was at its best when Brody Lee, Cody, Miro were feuding over it. Right now, it's been kind of passed back and forth a little bit. Scorpio Sky, while I think he's super talented and I think he could do a lot of good things with that title, it's not like he was ever positioned as a top guy as a singles competitor just yet. The unfortunate thing is for Sammy Guevara, whatever he's got going on right now, people just are not into it. So that title has diminished a little bit. Wardlow winning it, that would mean a lot. I don't think that people would view it as equal to the heavyweight championship, though. I think that would take some convincing.
It's that classic old, does the man make the title or does the title make the man situation? And I think part of what we see with this TNT title is just a product of Cody not being there anymore. There's no direction with this TNT title because I bet you they had a plan with Sammy and Cody, but it had to get derailed because Cody left for WWE. And now they're stuck and they could not find a real replacement storyline. So they're going back and forth with Scorpio and Sammy. And this week, Scorpio turned face. And the next week, they do a double turn. Yeah. And Scorpio's belt is getting destroyed by Frankie Kazarian and Sammy Guevara. There's no direction. It doesn't necessarily need Wardlow to win the title to get that back on track. There just needs to be a direction. And if Scorpio Sky goes on a run like Darby Allin, where he wins like 9 or 10 titles or title defenses, that puts it back on track. If you guys have any more questions, you can put them in the comments below and we'll put them on our next Q&A episode. But if you want to get in front of the line and be guaranteed a question answered, give us a super thanks. Just click that, any dollar amount to help support this channel and get your question answered. Definitely helps. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psycho Babble.